Hello chaps and chapettes and anyone else out there, and welcome to this, well, I already know this is going to be a lengthy set of videos, so, well, get ready for some long time before we get finished, and enjoy this. It's going to be an A to Z of Formula 1 Grand Prix winners. Now, started this project on the 4th of the 8th, 2023. It's already, the 22nd of the 10th, 2024. So this has been going on for a bit of time. This has taken a lot of planning. Now, I will update this as I'm going, obviously, because, you know, there are things that I can update, but some things won't be. So be prepared for some wrong information here and there, just because, well, it's going to be impossible to future-proof this, really. I mean, I might do a video on, say, Pierre Gasly, for instance, Grand Prix winner as this date, but he's won one Grand Prix. Maybe he'll win more next season. Who knows? Same for Ocon. You know, there's so many options there. The other thing as well is, you know, obviously if Alexander Albon wins a race, then I'm going to have to go back and make a video about that in the A section, but that will probably be done after I've finished all of the drivers and do a supplemental update when I do it. So who knows when that will come out, if it ever happened. But just to let you know, this series is going to be sort of focusing on the drivers as it's dated. So as I said, there are going to be some things that chop and change here and there. Some of these videos will go out of date, obviously, because, you know, there are drivers that are still racing. You know, Alonso could win the championship next season. Who knows? If that happens, then it's going to be out of date. But we'll wait and see. And look, one of the funny things I should say, just as I'm starting this, is one of my notes in the original script for this was someone other than Max Verstappen will win a race. So let's carry on. Of course, this was made when Verstappen was dominating, and we didn't see anybody else winning a Grand Prix. So that has of course changed, and we've got some new winners out of there as well. This really came about because of the video that came out actually in 2023. It was getting the drivers to name an A to Z of drivers that have won races. And some of them did particularly bad. A lot of it was just because drivers sort of have issues remembering certain things because they're focused on, you know, racing and things like that. So obviously this inspired me to make this video. Now, I'll also say name pronunciation is not a strong point. I'll try and pronounce names as they've been mentioned in broadcasts. So if ever we get to a driver that you go, no, that's pronounced wrong, I'm sorry in advance. But these things happen. It's just the way it is. So we'll have to wait and see how that goes. Anyway, with that housekeeping out of the way, let's get started for episode 1, and we're starting with Italian Alboreto. Italian Alboreto, one of only a few Italians to join Ferrari and actually, well, do well. Alboreto was a very successful driver from the outset, although his first few years were a little lacking in wins, having started his career in motorsport at the ripe age of 20 in 1976. He would cut his teeth in Formula Monza with a car he and his friends had built from scratch. The car was very non-competitive, however, and it was not until he moved up into Formula Italia series, driving a much more competitive March chassis, and it was not long until he found himself scoring results that would see him moving up into the world of Formula 3, driving with the Euro Racing Toyota March car, and a young Alboreto proved his worth, taking 3 wins in the Italian F3 Championship, 2 podiums in the European Series, and finishing second in the Italian F3 Championship. In 1980, he would compete across Europe in F3, scoring wins in the European and German F3 series, and winning the Euro F3 Championship. Getting called up to Lancia Corsa for their World Endurance Championship campaign in 1980, he would start by doing well, scoring podiums in the beautiful Group 5 Lancia Beta Monte Carlo. This effort on the world stage would open doors for the 24-year-old, as in 1981 he would get his F1 debut replacing the underwhelming Argentinian Riccardo Zanini, who is the answer to who replaced Lauda at the 1979 Canadian Grand Prix, where Zanini was there as a spectator, one of the few times a general admission ticket has landed a person of drive in Formula 1. Anyway, at the San Marino Grand Prix, Alboreto would become an F1 driver, although he would still have commitments in the World Endurance Championship with Lancia in the LC1 of Martini Racing, scoring victory at Watkins Glen in 81, Silverstone, Mugello and the Nordschleife Nürburgring in 1982. As for his Formula 1 career, it was off to a slow start in the Tyrrell. The now 2-year-old Tyrrell 010 was not setting the world alight, still using the legendary, if a bit out of date, DFV engine. Although the car did manage to score points, 10 points in the hands of Eddie Cheever, with a season best of 4th at the British Grand Prix, for Alboreto he only scored 5 finishes, with a best of 9th in the new T011. But early signs were good for the car, and a switch from Avon to Goodyear tyres in 1982 would prove fortuitous. For 1982, Alboreto would be the team leader, and for the first 3 races would be joined by the ABBA drummer, one Slim Borgard. No, that's not a joke. This really was a driver, and it wasn't bad actually in racing cars. And latterly, joined by Brian Henton, the only driver to have scored a fastest lap and never scored a point. And you thought Hulkenberg had it rough. The season kicked off with a career best finish of 7th, just outside the points at Kyalami. Next up, at the Brazilian Grand Prix, Alboreto would score his first points with a strong 4th place in the gruelling hot race. At Long Beach, he would come home 4th again, and then 1 year after his debut, at a track which he had his first F1 race just 1 year prior, he proved to Ken Tyrrell that he made the right choice by scoring a podium with 3rd, although the rest of the 1982 season started to falter, with 5 retirements ranging from mechanical failure to driver error. He did manage to score a 6th in France, a 4th in Germany and a 5th at Monza. The final race of 1982 would be held at the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas. The short, twisty nature of the track meant that the mighty turbo cars of the day were lacking with their long wind-up time, that they were not as dominant on this short, twisty circuit. That being said, the 2 Renault turbo cars of Prost and Arnoux would of course take pole and 2nd place, a second clear of 3rd place man Alboreto in the Tyrrell. In the race, the 2 Renaults charged away, only for Arnoux car to do the Renault turbo thing of exploding on lap 20. Alboreto was up to 2nd at this time, and to many people's surprise, catching Prost, who was suffering with his tyres. This led to the Italian cruising by the Frenchman and taking the lead for the first time in his career, and on lap 75 with a 25-second lead over the McLaren of John Watson, Michele Alboreto would take his first Grand Prix victory and the team's first win since 1978. This would secure him 8th place in the championship with 25 points and the team 6th, also with 25 points. 1983 would be a struggle for the team and the car. The Tyrrell 011, now in its 3rd year of service, was lacking, and the 16-year-old DFV engine was showing its age. The 011 would only finish in the points twice for 83, with desperate hope the 0112 would be better. Teammate Danny Sullivan, who would score first with a 5th in Monaco. 7 rounds in, and the team had 2 points. Alboreto scored 0. Then Detroit 1983 came around. Qualifying was interesting, with times getting slower as rubber went down, meaning drivers who set their times early were higher up than usual. Alboreto started 6th and went with the bold strategy to not stop in the race. This led to him getting up to 2nd place behind Piquet, who was assured victory until a puncture took that chance away. Alboreto and Tyrrell scored victory in a fairly large upset just ahead of Rosberg and the hard-charging Watson, who started 21st. The tight track once more suited the naturally aspirated DFV engine. This was Tyrrell's final victory. It was also the last naturally aspirated engine to win until turbos were banned after the 1988 season. The 155th and last Grand Prix victory for the legendary Ford DFV Cosworth engine, which had been racing since 1967 and would see its final race in 1985. As the season closed, Alboreto would come home 12th with only 10 points and the team in 7th with 12. 1984 would see Alboreto sign for Ferrari, although the team would struggle in the ageing 126C4, which was a dinosaur compared to the all-new McLaren MP42. It struggled with a lack of downforce to its rivals, but that being said, was not that slow. At round 3, the Belgian Grand Prix at Zolder, both Ferraris would start from the front row, with Alboreto taking pole just ahead of teammate Arnoux. In the race, he would lead from the start to finish all 70 laps and take his first victory for an emotional prancing horse, driving the number 27, who had lost their star driver Villeneuve at that track 2 years prior.
Yes, that's Alboreto for the first time really in the top team, not that that's only his first on Tyrrell, for whom he won 2 Grand Prix quite brilliantly, but they couldn't provide him with the car that both they wanted to provide him and he wanted. Now, he's for the first time in Ferrari confirming the really exceptional talent he has. He's poised, he makes no mistakes, he's thoroughly un-Italian, if I might put it like that, in the way he drives and his approach, and he's driven an absolutely flawless and immaculate race today.
But more importantly for the Tifosi, it was the first Italian to win for the cars in red since Scarfalotti won the 1966 Italian Grand Prix. And on the 29th of April 1984, a new Italian hero was truly born. The rest of the season would see 3 more podium finishes. And finish the season in 4th place with 30.5 points and secure the team's 2nd place in the Constructors with 57.5, although this was way off the winning McLarens, who had scored 143.5 points, well, if you're watching in modern times, a Red Bull-esque style victory. 1985 would see the all-new and rather beautiful, if not fragile, 156/85, the 156/85, roll onto the track. This would prove to be the most successful year for the pairing, who would be fighting the McLaren of Prost for the championship. A pair of podiums at the start of the year looked promising, with Alboreto leading the championship going into round 4 at Monaco, only for Prost to take victory ahead of Alboreto's 2nd place. Next up in Canada, the number 27 Ferrari would take victory before the adoring masses, with another podium in Detroit for 3rd position. At round 7, the Ferrari driver had the lead in the championship, but in France his turbo would blow, leading to a DNF. Prost would win at Silverstone, although Alboreto came home 2nd, and the championship was still anyone's in Germany. The tide would turn slightly as Alboreto would score his 5th Grand Prix victory, and sadly this would be his last win. In the final 4 races, reliability would strike hard with no finishes. The season would close with Prost as champion and Alboreto as runner-up on 53 points. Ferrari 2nd with 82 points in total. He would stay with Ferrari until 1989, joining Tyrrell and LaRousse, and then finding refuge in a number of backmarker teams such as Footwork, Lola, and finally Minardi, where he would score his final point at the Monaco Grand Prix in 1994, ending his 13-year career. Just quickly to mention, scoring a point in a Minardi was a very tricky thing to do, and just showed how much talent Alboreto had. After Formula 1, he would find himself driving anything fast, from Indy cars, touring cars, but mostly, crucially, endurance racing. Joining Team Yost, he would find he would win the 1997 Le Mans 24 Hours with Stefan Johansson and Mr. Le Mans himself, Tom Christensen, and would be a crucial part in the development of the all-new and what would become dominant Audi R8. Sadly, however, he would never see the true success of this car, as on the 25th of April 2001, he would be killed in a high-speed testing crash. His name now lives on at the Curva Parabolica, which was renamed the Curva Alboreto in 2021.